Shalom. All praises to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the bishops, and the elders of GMS who rules well. Peace and salutations to the elect. My name is Ainal. The title of this video is The Master Plan of the M.O.T.B, right, which is the mark of the beast, the charagma, the RFID chip, the C hip, that's going to go on your right hand and your forehead pursuant to Revelations 13, right? And basically, I got some news here regarding the strong ties of Iran and Russia in these last days, pursuant to Ezekiel 38. Russia will be joined with the Persians, which is Iran. Like I said, pursuant to Ezekiel 38. So anyway, basically, I was digging. I got a lot of information. Of course, I got Revelations 13 and 16, but I just got that precept, right? And it'll be more information based. And basically, this goes into the master plan of America, because the whole process of like MasterCard and Visa card and all that was America, and basically they push it out to the world because, obviously they control the dollar. It's a whole scheme. They had gold, and then they took the dollar off the gold standard and they put the dollar back by oil, the petrodollar, because the nations around the world can only buy oil through the dollar. Right, so they gained that power, and then they issued forth the Visa and MasterCard, right, and that was the first stage of like their digital system. That's why I call it the master plan, because even now, they're causing people to hurt because their system that they set up, and that's who they're causing hurt right now are the enemies, Iran and Russia. By what? By stopping them from using their Visa and MasterCard system, which is going into the digital system. That's like the first stage, of this Visa and MasterCard. And then you had contactless payments, right? How they put a chip in the card and all that. So that was all part of the master plan. So it was stopping people from using it. And now that we're in the end, we see the nations rising up against them, and they're forming BRICS, So we'll have to see what happens. But ultimately, we know that they go to war, right? And you can get Habakkuk too, because that's what's happening. Right, this is what's happening. So like I said, it's kind of slow right now. So let me see. I'll probably just get in my Bible where I'm at. All right, bear with me. It's kind of slow over here. So let's have Habakkuk 2 and 2, and I'll just start it from 1. It says, I will stand upon my watch and set me upon a tower, and will watch to see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. And the Lord Yahweh answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, that the end shall speak and not lie, though it tarry. Wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. Right, so the visions are the prophecies, right, and they're manifesting themselves here in these last days, right, along with the nations rising up against Babylon the Great. And we see a big part of that in the de-dollarization that the nations are doing. They're trying to gain power, right? You have many scriptures, ones that Joel 3, right? The weak proclaiming that they are strong now. And we have what I'm about to read now, this Habakkuk 2. In verse 4, it says, behold, his soul, which is lifted up, is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. So Esau, Edom is not upright, right? But the just, who are the Israelites, the hopeful elect, now in this time shall live by their faith. Says, yet also because he transgressed by wine, which is his policy. This is the master plan of these devils, right? They have fully taken control over the whole planet, which is their blessing, right? They have the fatness of the earth, and they rule by the sword, and they have, made the sword everything, even money, and that's why we're going to get that Revelations 13, where it says he causes people to die, because he can completely cut them off from society, by just telling them, they can't use the payment system, or putting sanctions on them not to use the payment system, right? Or even when this M.O.T.B comes to place, for the short period of time that it be out, just allowing people not to buy or sell, Verse 5 says, also because he transgressed by wine, he is a proud man, not to keep it at home, who enlarges his desire as hell, and is as death. He cannot be satisfied, but gathered unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. It says, verse 6, shall not all these take a parable against him, and a talking proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, how long? and to him that ladeth himself with thick clay, and this thick clay is the debt, right? It goes into money, right? And these nations are saying how long, and that's the case that we're living in now, where they're saying how long, and basically they're trying to go around the dollar, right? De-dollarize and form their own type payments, right? So verse 7 says, "Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties unto them?" Hey, so basically, what they gonna keep pushing with their system, their banking system, up to the point where ultimately they're gonna go to war, right? Over this, over everything, all the things that's happening here in the last days, right? The Revelations, what is it? 17 says that they shall hate the whore, right? Revelation 17 in verse 12, it says, Revelation 17 and 12, it says, "In the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings." Matter of fact, well, I mean, I can start right there. Verse 12 says, "In the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour of the beast." Right, the beast is going into what? Basically, America, the beast system of America. The NATO, the EU, and their whole system involves, yeah, like I said, the NATO and the EU. So the 10 horns are the NATO and the EU, right? It says, "These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. Then shall," verse 14 says, "These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them." So now this is going into World War III, which will take place, right? And in the midst of that, what I'm reading right now is what's going to take place too. These 10 horns, being joined unto the beast, right? It says, "These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful." And that goes to the hopeful elect, right? It says, "And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the horse sitteth are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues." It says in verse 16, "And 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire." So there's a lot of things happening these last days that's making these nations hate the whore. And a big part of that right now, what is Donald Trump doing? He's basically fucking up the money. He's fucking up the money in a lot of cases too. Even the everyday American is starting to hate Trump because the money here is getting messed up, right? But this is all part of the master plan of the M.O.T.B. It says, yeah, so that was the point, and then you get Obadiah 1 and 7 also, where these America's allies were turning against him, right? And that's the point. So it's going to come to war, and a big part of that is because of this system, right? This debt that America has accumulated, and now they're going to try to switch over to something else, right? And basically, it's not that easy, the nations are tired of that. So anyway, we got this. I ain't going to try to make this too long. So this is Russians can now pay with MIR cards in Iran, Islamic Republic Central Bank. It says the main tourist centers of Iran popular with Russians were equipped with the technology in the first stage. I believe they wanted to put stage here because there's stages like 1, 2, and 3 stages, right? Which I got covered that over there. So Russians traveling to Iran can now pay on Iranian terminals using MIR cards with the NFC technology and using smartphones through the MIR Pay application. So there you go. Basically, they're joining their payment systems. They're integrating with each other, allowing, my country can now go to my bank and they can pull out your, money from, your fund basically. It's right here. It says Russians traveling to Iran can now pay on Iranian terminals using MIR cards with the NFC technology and using smartphones through the MIR Pay application. See, that's the point. And then it goes on to say, and I just read all this. It says an official ceremony of the completion of the second stage of integration of the Russian and Iranian payment systems, MIR and SHTAB, has taken place in Tehran, the press service of the Iranian Central Bank reported. See, and it says the same thing I read earlier. So the first stage of integration of the Russian and Iranian payment system was finalized, enabling Iranians to withdraw rubles at Russian ATMs. So they're joining together, right? Because basic prophecy. They're joining together because of prophecy. and now they're integrating a system, but this system is going to lead to M.O.T.B. And basically, it's Babylon the Great forcing these people to go digital, right? This is the plan, the master plan of the M.O.T.B. And it's crazy, So there's some stuff here. So I'll just jump to that part. Okay, so we got this NFC technology, right? It says NFC, or near field communication, is a short range wireless technology that enables two devices to communicate when they are in close proximity, right? So we know that's going to. All right, oh, there it is right there. Okay. It says typically a few centimeters is often used for contactless payments, pairing devices and exchanging data. NFC uses radio frequency identification, RFID, to transmit data following protocols set by the NFC form. And ultimately, what that's going to go into the M.O.T.B., right? We plenty of lessons breaking it down. This is kind of just going into the news of what's happening. So these people are integrating together, but at the same time, it's the master plan of, America, right? So I did a lot of searching up here. All right, so MIR, it says, is a Russian card payment system for electronic fund transfer established by the Central Bank of Russia under a law adopted on May 1st, 2017. Now, the point is, before all this card payment system, contactless payments, and all of that stuff, they didn't have that. They just had regular, whatever their payment was, the rubles or cash, or like a check. They didn't have Visa and MasterCard and things like that America pushed on them and then sanctioned their ass with the card and forced them, to go somewhere else. That's the point. I mean, that's really the whole point of the video. I'm going to read Revelation 13 and 16. It's just, a step towards the M.O.T.B. It says Russian National Card Payment System, a wholly owned subsidiary of the Central Bank of Russia, MIR, does not itself issue cards, and it goes on. It says the development and implementation of MIR was spurred by the imposition of international sanctions against Russia. So that's key, because that's how he's causing people to do that. He's causing these people to move toward this system, this digital system that he's going to put in place in the world, right? Because he basically controls the money. And when I say he, I'm talking about Babylon the Great America, right? The JOO banking elites that run the world. It says the imposition of international sanctions against Russia in 2014 to circumnavigate the reliance on the likes of Visa and MasterCard, which are blocked in Russia at the time. MIR created its own digital wallet for contactless payments. See, so you can see it's still going digital. That plan is still there. They're moving right along with Bible prophecy. So I went on DeepSeek, and DeepSeek is, the same as what ChatGPT or even Google. These things are just really more smart. So, so anyway, asking a few questions. I said, so the point is, like I just stated, the whole card system, who gave Russia this card system? I said, did Russia use card payment systems before MIR and Visa? Because they use MasterCard and Visa, but because the sanctions on them, they had to find something else. And what they found was MIR, which is another card which they got from basically America. Like the idea of cards and contactless payment systems and all of that, they got it from America. They got it from the beast. It says, before the introduction of MIR, launched in 2015, and before the widespread use of Visa and MasterCard in Russia, the country relied on a mix of international and domestic payment systems. Here's a breakdown. We got Soviet era, 1991. It says no card payments. They didn't have nothing. So before that, it said the Soviet Union did not have a consumer card payment system. Cash and state-issued checks were the primary means of transaction, right? And that's going all the way back to the first banking elite families. They used the paper checks and the actual cash, things like that. Then we got number 2. It says post-Soviet 1990s. It says early adoption of Visa and MasterCard. So they started to adopt the Visa and MasterCard. Then it goes in 2000s. It says the growth of Visa and MasterCard. Then it says in 2010, it says the birth of MIR, which is basically another card, but it's a Russia card, But before that, they was using all American stuff. But because of Bible prophecy, them going to war, they started to depart from each other, basically. It says in 2022, we know what happened around 2019, 2021, and all of that. So we know we're in that time. It says Visa and MasterCard exit and MIR's expansion, you know. So anyway, then I said, who owns Visa and MasterCard? And, we're not shocked here. It says Visa and MasterCard are publicly traded companies, meaning they are owned by shareholders rather than a single individual or government, kind of like the Federal Reserve banking system. It says Visa and MasterCard are publicly traded companies, meaning they are owned by shareholders rather than a single individual or government. Here's a breakdown of their ownership structures. It says, make sure it's still going over here. Are we good? So Visa Inc. Founded in 1958. That was 10 years after 1948, right when the JWO small hats took over that land. It says founded in 1958 as Bank Americard, later named Visa, in 1976. It says headquarters, California, USA. Boom. Then it goes to MasterCard Inc., founded in 1966 as Interbank Card Association, later Master Charge, then MasterCard in 1979, headquarters, USA, New York. All right, so there you go. So I mean, that's the point. This is the master plan of America. The M.O.T.B. So I was reading a little bit of this down here. So we'll maybe search it all up. You see, sanctions. See, that's the point. And I'm gonna grab this. It says in March of 2022, as a result, international sanctions during the 22 Russian invasion of Ukraine, Apple digital wallet services, Apple Pay and Google Pay stopped supporting MIR cards. In March 2024, Samsung announced that Samsung Pay will no longer support MIR cards, right? And this is hurting. It was hurting Russia. It says that the 2022 exit of Visa and MasterCard from the Russian market resulted in significantly increased use of the Russian MIR payment system in Russia and beyond, at a time when their combined penetration accounted for less than 70% of the Russian consumer credit card market. Their ceasing of operations in Russia represented a 1.5 US billion annual revenue loss to the two financial services giants. The result was a sharp increase in the number of MIR cards issued. So it goes into it. They do that, and then basically they sanction the hell out of these banks. Okay, right here. In September 2022, the U.S. Treasury Department threatened foreign banks with secondary sanctions for servicing MIR cards. The department said, or MIR, whatever it says, the department said in a statement, none U.S. financial institutions that enter into new or expanded agreements with NSPK risk supporting Russia's efforts to evade U.S. sanctions. See, so they because they own the money, right? Basically, you trade through the petrodollar system and all of that. It says through the expanded use of the MIR national payment system outside of the territory of Russia. In the following weeks, large banks in a number of countries began to refuse to service Russian cards. And it goes into it. So they're trying to find a way around it. So yeah, basically Visa and MasterCard was taken away. That's what caused me to look up all these, these things. And it made me think of the title of the video and basically just how America has the grip on the people with that, So anyway, we have a Russia and Iran, getting stronger ties and also, integrating their payment system. And, eventually it'll go digital, and it can be already digital, just like the title said there. So that's pretty much it with it. And I was trying to figure out here, Google didn't really want to tell me before 2014 how or what did Russia use to pay for things, and it goes into they use the Russian ruble to pay for things, right? So before that, they just used cash and checks, Oh, this was it right here. said, did Russia use card payments before 2014? And it said yes, and they gave me the MIR and Visa and MasterCard and things like that. But they didn't have their own card system until America, brought that forth, which is a part of their master plan for M.O.T.B. It says, so they didn't use anything. Yes, and that's another way America took a hold of the world by issuing out this Visa and MasterCard. It says yes. I asked, did Russia use card payments before the West told them to? Because that's basically what happened. They say you'll take this card or you won't be able to make payments and stuff in the world, just like they're sanctioning people. What they're saying, you listen to me or you're not able to operate in the world that runs on the American dollar. That's why I gave you Habakkuk too, because people are trying away from that. It says yes, Russia used card payments, including Visa and MasterCard, before the West actions led to changes. While Russia did not develop its own payment system, while Russia did develop its own payment system, MIR, and other alternatives in response to Western sanctions, card payments were already a significant part of the Russian financial landscape prior to the 2022 suspension of Visa and MasterCard operations. See? And I gave you the whole breakdown of that. And, like I said, just going to the news, they're forming their ties pursuant to Ezekiel 38, but it's also going digital, and that's because of the beast, right? Esau, Edom, so-called white man. It says Revelations 13:11. Now behold another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. What is this? The revised Roman Empire, right? And you have your Republic and your Democratic Party, right? And basically, those two parties have led us to where we're at now. Those two parties put forth the Visa and MasterCard. Those two parties has led us to where we're at now, regardless of what, right? It all has come basically to today, right? And now, and it says, and he spake as a dragon, which goes into the measures, the draconian measures that we're now seeing take place pursuant to what Isaiah 19, the cruel Lord, DJ Trump, basically signing executive orders and bringing complete hell on the world, because you got your tariffs, your sanctions on people. Iran can't have nuclear missiles. There's talks of him even betraying Benjamin Netanyahu, which is, some BS. But, things are happening. It says, and he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, which is Rome, right? And causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast whose deadly one was healed. So he basically America structured itself, she structured itself after the Roman Empire, laws, building structure, court system, and all of that. It says, and he do a great wonder so that he make a fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, right? And that's why the scriptures say Babylon have been a golden cup in the Lord's hand, right? And he basically made the nations mad, roughly paraphrasing scripture, because what? Through America, things are operated, like I kind of broke down earlier. And that what is this? The fire that came down was those missiles, Big Boy and Little Man, that he dropped on Japan, right? It says, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles, which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. Hey, and that's going to his digital age, his digital system. And it started with what? The Visa and Master. Well, I mean, of course, it started with them even getting a hold of the banking system itself, taking the dollar off the gold standard, putting the dollar on the petrol deal, making the world get oil through the petrodollar, right? This whole master plan of the M.O.T.B. And it's coming to fruition, right? But, they're only going to get so far with that. It says, and so it says, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast. That's the whole point. This devil had the power because he was given the fatness of the earth, going back to his blessing. That's Esau, Edom, and we can grab that real quick. I believe it's Genesis 37 or 27. Let me see. Oh, okay. It's not just a dream. You get 27. Anyway, so Right. All right, so I'll get it from here. Genesis 27 and 30. And it came to pass, as soon as Isaac had made an end of blessing Jacob, and Jacob was yet scarce gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. And he also had made a savory meat, and brought it unto his father, and said unto his father, Let my father arise and eat of his son's venison, that thou soul may bless me. And Isaac his father said unto him, Who art thou? And he said, I am thy son, thy firstborn Esau. And Isaac trembled very exceedingly and said, Who? Where is he that hath taken venison and brought it me? And I have eaten of all before thou camest, and have blessed him. Yea, and he shall be blessed. And when Esau heard the voice, and when Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with a great and exceeding bitter cry, and said unto his father, Bless me, even me also, O my father. And he said, Thy brother came with subtlety, and have taken away thy blessing. And he said, Is not he rightly named Jacob? For he hath supplanted me these two times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he taketh away my blessing. And he said, Hast thou not reserved a blessing for me? And Isaac answered and said unto Esau, Behold, I have made him thy lord, and all his brethren have I given to him for servants. And with corn and wine have I sustained him. And what shall I do unto thee, my son? And Esau said unto his father, hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and the dew of heaven from above. That's why Esau controls the world, and he air security, and space and all that stuff that he had before. But he's losing that now because we're at the end when he's about to be destroyed. It says, and by thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. So he lives by the sword, and he has basically sortified everything, which is, the weapon. He has made everything a weapon, including money. Right? It says, and by thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother, and it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. Right? And in the history, King David, King Solomon, things like that, we had Esau underfoot, but eventually, he rose up, and here he is today, controlling the world and causing people, to take this image. Revelation 13 and 15, it says, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And basically, he's sanctioning people. You got to use the dollar, and he's been doing that. That's why, but we're at the end now where he's losing that power. Obviously, he's losing that power. And even when he get this M.O.T.B popping off, he has the power to turn that chip off and turn it on, right? In this digital age where he controls everything. It says, and he calls it all, both small and great. I'm gonna read that again. It says, verse 15, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as will not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he calls all, those small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, right? And it started with, the contactless payments, the card system, the taking, the gold from the dollar and all that. And here we are now where this M.O.T.B system is, people are buying it right now. People are using it right now, right? But he just hasn't pushed it out in the world like he pushed Visa and MasterCard, right? And sanctioned people. Everybody got a Visa and MasterCard, right? Cash App and all this stuff. It says, and he calls all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, for the name of the beast or the number of his name. And that's the point. You're not going to buy or sell unless you have this RFID chip. Here's wisdom, let him that have understanding find the number of the beast or his number, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 600,666, right? And that number relates to Esau, Edom, and his M.O.T.B system. All right, so that's that. Lord willing, you're edified from the lesson. It was a lot here. You can ask ChatGPT the same questions. It says the master plan of the M.O.T.B. With that, I'll say shalom to those elect, which consists of men, women, and children. Shalom.